Losing your job out of nowhere is absolutely devastating. It's not just the paycheck, right? It's your identity, your stability, and when that is suddenly ripped away, the financial and emotional shock is huge. But here's the thing. If you've got this gut feeling that your firing was totally unfair or even illegal, you shouldn't have to navigate that nightmare alone.
Once the dust settles, the very first question that races through your mind is probably, wait, can I actually sue my employer for firing me? Well, let's dive into that. To get you a real answer, we have to look at the rules of the game, specifically how workplace laws operate here in California.
And that brings us to a rather harsh reality, which is called at-will employment. In California, this basically means an employer can let you go at literally any time. And get this, they don't even have to give you a reason. You could show up early every single day, be the absolute perfect employee, do phenomenal work, and boom, you can still be legally let go. I know, it's a really tough pill to swallow.
But, and this is a massive but, there are exceptions. The law draws a very clear line in the sand between a legal firing and an illegal one. On one hand, you have legal reasons. The company is legitimately downsizing, or maybe performance metrics just weren't being hit. But on the other side, illegal reasons like discrimination or retaliation. When a false termination lawyer looks at your case, they are zooming right in on that illegal column. Because while they can fire you for no reason, they absolutely positively cannot fire you for an illegal reason.
So when exactly does a firing cross that line and become illegal? Well, let's look at some wrongful termination examples to see how this actually plays out in the real world.
Let's paint a picture here with some real situational events that everyday folks face. Like, have you ever heard of someone getting fired right after reporting sexual harassment to HR? Or maybe a company suddenly discharges its older, super experienced workers just to replace them with a younger, cheaper crew. What about getting terminated because you spotted unsafe working conditions and actually reported them to OSHA? Or getting let go simply because you needed to take a family or medical leave? Listen, these aren't just unfair situations. They are textbook examples of illegal actions by an employer.
And it doesn't stop there. Think about being fired right after filing a workers' compensation claim because you got hurt on the job, or being terminated just because you asked for a reasonable accommodation for a disability. How about being fired because you flat out refused to participate in some shady, fraudulent accounting practices the company was trying to sweep under the rug? Or coming back from parental leave only to find out, wow, you've been entirely replaced. If any of this sounds even a little bit familiar, it is absolutely crucial to know that a lawyer for unlawful termination can step in and help you fight back.
So how does all of this fit into the broader law? Let's start with discrimination. Under California's Fair Employment and Housing Act, often just called FEHA, you are heavily protected from being fired based on traits like your race, age, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or disability. And the law is actually evolving to protect you even more. Case in point, a 2025 update to California law now explicitly recognizes what's called intersectionality. That basically means if you face discrimination based on a combination of traits, say race and gender together, that is a fully valid, recognized basis for a legal claim.
Now, what if they didn't technically look you in the eye and say you're fired, but they made your work life such a living hell that you just walked out? This brings us to a really vital legal concept called constructive discharge. In plain English, it means you are forced to quit. It's when an employer creates working conditions that are so intentionally toxic, so absolutely intolerable, that any reasonable person in your shoes would feel they had zero choice but to pack up their desk and run.
To actually prove constructive discharge, there are three main steps. First, the conditions had to be genuinely intolerable. Second, the employer actually intended to create those conditions, or they knew about them and just let them happen. And third, you resigned promptly because of it. The big takeaway here is that even if you formally handed in a resignation letter, a Los Angeles wrongful termination attorney can still help you build a massive case against your employer. Just because you quit doesn't let them off the hook if they forced your hand.
Okay, so that covers discrimination and being forced out. But what if they fired you simply because you did the right thing? Like blowing the whistle on a huge safety issue?
Well, that falls firmly under retaliation. Your employer absolutely cannot punish you for asserting your basic legal rights. If you report safety violations, if you discuss your wages with a coworker, which, by the way, is your legally protected right, or if you allege racial discrimination, they cannot retaliate by firing you. And interestingly enough, under some newly strengthened 2026 standards, the protections for workers who report workplace violations are more robust than ever before. Doing the right thing is strictly protected.
Another major exception to that at-will rule is a breach of contract. If your employer made a written or even an implied promise of job security, like saying you'd only ever be fired for cause, they actually have to honor that. Oh, and here's a fascinating update for 2026. California is banning what are called stay-or-pay contracts. Essentially, employers generally cannot force you to pay back training costs if you decide to leave or if you're terminated. It's a huge win for your freedom as an employee.
All right, so we've covered exactly what makes a firing illegal. But, knowledge is only half the battle, right? Now we need to talk about what you should actually do if you're stuck in this devastating situation. Let's look at taking legal action and the steps to recover your damages. Look, I totally get it. The legal process sounds incredibly daunting, especially when you're already stressing out about how to pay the bills. But let's demystify it and break it down into 3 really actionable steps. Step 1. Document absolutely everything. Save emails to your personal drive, jot down the exact dates of incidents, and make a list of potential witnesses. Step 2. You'll typically need to file a formal complaint with the California Civil Rights Department or the federal EEOC. And Step 3, and honestly this is the big one, consult an illegal termination lawyer. Having a pro guide you means you won't make procedural slip-ups that could ruin your whole claim.
And speaking of slip-ups, there is a very, very strict timeline here. 1 year. In California, you have a strict 1-year deadline to file that administrative complaint for discrimination or retaliation. If you wait too long, you could permanently lose your right to seek justice. So whatever you do, please do not let the clock run out on this.
So if you do take action and win, what does justice actually look like? Well, a successful case is all about making you whole again. That means fighting for back pay, which covers all your lost wages from the moment you were fired right up until the settlement. It also includes damages for the emotional distress, the depression, and the anxiety this whole ordeal put you through. In really severe cases of employer misconduct, you might even get punitive damages, which are designed specifically to punish the company. And crucially, it covers your attorney fees, so that massive financial burden of fighting back is completely lifted off your shoulders.
But to actually get those kinds of results, you need the absolute right team in your corner. Which brings us to Bibiyan Law Group. These unfair firing lawyers have made it their entire mission to hold big employers fully accountable when they cross the line and mistreat everyday workers.
What's really incredible about Bibiyan Law Group is how they operate. They have years of deep, specialized expertise in this exact field, and they know you're probably in a super vulnerable spot financially right now. That's exactly why they operate on a contingency fee basis. In plain English, that means 0 out-of-pocket costs for you. They don't get paid a single dime unless they win your case or secure a settlement. It literally removes all the financial anxiety of standing up to a giant company.
And their track record? It absolutely speaks volumes. Take a look at this. $5.5 million. That's a real, tangible settlement they recovered in a class action lawsuit against a massive government services contractor for unpaid wages. That's enough to prove they know exactly how to go toe-to-toe with massive entities and actually win.
Or how about this one? $750,000. This was secured in a wrongful termination case where the company tried to falsely claim they were just downsizing. Yeah, right. Bibiyan Law Group dug in, exposed the truth, proved it was an illegal firing, and won huge for an everyday employee whose livelihood had been unfairly ripped away.
But honestly, beyond the giant numbers, it's really about the actual people they help. Just listen to what real client Charles S. had to say. They kept me in the loop with all the details and supported me along the way until I received my settlement. When you're going through one of the most stressful times of your life, having a legal team that actually talks to you, supports your mental well-being, and genuinely cares about you, that makes all the difference in the world.
So as we wrap this up, I want you to really think about your own situation for a second, or maybe a friend or family member's situation. Was it an illegal firing? Did your employer cross the line? If anything we just talked about sounded a little too familiar, if you have this sinking feeling that your sudden job loss wasn't just unfair, but actually legally wrong, don't just accept it. The law is on your side, and the experts at Bibiyan Law Group are ready to offer a free consultation to help you fight back. Go find out what you're owed and take back your power.